Okay, so conscious channeler compared to other channelers. Um, Lots of tears so I can let my state of grace come through, which is how I prefer to channel. That way, they're the only entities that are going to come through me can match that state of grace. Um, so the difference between a regular channeler that most people are familiar with and a conscious channel is a regular channeler will let their consciousness be pushed aside, or they will choose to step aside, and another entity will come through using their body. And you'll notice that their mannerisms change, and expressions come through them that they normally wouldn't allow. They themselves would not feel comfortable expressing. Um, so I remain conscious. I don't allow my consciousness as a human being to be pushed aside. Um, whether that makes me a control freak or not, I don't know. I think maybe I prefer it because I like being human. Obviously, a confession. And I like to react on the human level, be aware of the comfort levels of the human beings that I'm interacting with. So, you'll notice I may take on a mannerism just because it's fun, like talk with an accent or something. But that's because I'm allowing it because I choose to. Um, so the last time I worked with other people as a channel, uh, my state of grace, my innocence, drove them nuts. They rebelled against it. They didn't think I had a right to it. But I have a right to it. I wouldn't have been able to embody it. So, fuck them. And I had a lot of insecurities. I couldn't talk in front of other people. Things like that. So, I took quite a few years off. And I let myself go down into the deepest darkness, get into the subconscious, as well as all the residual consciousnesses. For example, in certain organs, we might carry genetic memories and personalities. So we may be a miserly hoarder, not know where it comes from because we're always focusing on the good, and we deny that the miserly hoarder exists. But that's something from a really primitive ancestor, and we're not conscious. So that's the subconscious that undermines our physical experience. You know, we could be into the law of attraction and always focusing on the positive, yet we're just not getting anywhere. That would be because our subconscious is undermining us, as I said. And so I did that work. I went deep into the subconscious. Um, I actually entered the state of death and came back without injury. At the time, I was very angry at that. But when I came back and I stopped being so angry about it, thank you, Ansel and James, for bringing me food that morning. But as I was saying, when I came back and settled down out of my anger, different perceptions came through, ways of perceiving myself, my qualities, my actions, that helps me feel better about myself. And I still have a hard time allowing myself to accept that I'm allowed to feel good about myself, and that I'm allowed to embody this state of grace as much as I darn well want to. So that's where I'm at. Wanting to be in that state of grace and sharing it with other people. And this video's the first step in doing so. I'm going to have to start interacting with people as a conscious channeler, allow them to draw things out of me. And I have questions about different experiences that I've had, and I'd like to work with other channelers, whether they channel an entity or not. Bashar seems to be the one with the line on alien interactions, and I had one experience that pertains to that, and it would be helpful for me to get involved with other people who have had more conscious interactions with alien entities. I wasn't abducted or anything like that. I just entered a consciousness where the person that I was working with, they opened their hand and there were some seeds there. One was cracked open and out popped a little alien. And when they said, "Where did it go?" because it went running, I pointed and I could feel it. It was cold to the touch. And it had run to this thing, which was very alien looking, like we would associate alien looking things, with like a glass and then, wood or whatever. Kind of, it magnified the little alien's face. And I want to bring that information through, why I had that experience and what it wanted me to see more closely. So there's some exciting things that I can get into if I follow through with this. And so I just have to find the means to interact with other people to allow them to draw more channeled information through me. And I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do that. I've worked over the phone before, but people, because I was insecure when I would pick up the phone, the people that would come through would want to know who killed my daughter. And when I tuned into it, just very dark, evil spirits immediately focused on me, and I was like, no, and how dare you ask me to connect with that? Your daughter told you. I brought through the information from your daughter to not look further into it, and any attempt to do so brought back some really malicious consciousnesses directed at me, and I don't need to mess with those. It's not because I don't care. It's because there are certain levels where people are focusing on going on, and I'm not focused on going into a place even darker than where I've been. I think I've served enough in the circles, the areas, the consciousness that is very malicious and very dark and very hopeless. That's what it is. It's hopeless. I like hope. And my hope is solid because I've had proof. I've had validation for my hopes. So, in line with the definition of faith being that which we know exists and what we would consider a future, we know it. And that's how we have faith in it, because we've had experiences with it. And my experiences can be, I can smell them, I can get feeling sensations, I can see what would be for us a future event, because as a lot of people know and understand, everything exists all at once. Time is a construct, sort of like how we used to create cartoon on our in our books, where you draw a picture on the corner of a page and you flip through it, because you just change one little thing on each corner of the page. I don't know if everybody's done that as a child, but it's like the old-fashioned way of creating cartoons. That's how we experience time. And dates and times on the clock are just kind of like going to the library. The Dewey Decimal System for our experiences would be the dates and time. It's October, I don't know, what is it today, the 9th or 10th, and whatever time it is. I prefer to live not so closely bound to those things, so I don't always have that on the forefront of my mind. I don't feel like channeling that information right now, because it's too limited, and I have to let go of certain limitations in order to embody my state of grace, because it doesn't resonate with people who like to be limited by facts and figures and specifics and hard lines. See, I just get whoop out of it when I even consider those personality types. They come into conflict with me very strongly, because I know I'm not bound by those things, and my knowing, my certainty, my confidence in it just drives them crazy, because it causes them to question their construct that they feel safe in. And I don't want to make anybody feel unsafe, mostly because I don't want them to hurt me. You know, cornered animal is more likely to hurt whatever it feels cornered by. And people came from animals. So, especially the people with very hard construct beliefs who want to stay there because they feel safe there, they get very threatened by my presence. A lot of people liken it to, you know, you're in the dark and somebody comes and turns on a floodlight. Like, woo, that's me. I'm a floodlight in a dark cave. Sorry, I didn't mean to hurt your eyes there. And so that's why I prefer to be in a state of grace. That way I draw only people who are closer to a state of grace, and they aren't so resistant, and they don't feel like they have to exact vengeance for some imagined wrong that I might have purposely done them. Another example of things that I came into was, I can make a very innocent request. I was in a farmhouse. I was watching the farmhouse while the guy was off doing other things. There were other people involved, coming and going, and one of them left a camper behind. And because the man had such resistance to me, the man who was in charge, he was afraid I was going to ask for that camper. The person who owned the camper and who left it said, you know, please give it to somebody who could use it. I was very clearly somebody who could use it. I had 2 children with me at the time. And this man was so afraid that I was going to ask for the camper and that I was going to leave the circumstances, which my presence there benefited him greatly, that when I did get up the courage to ask, I didn't even ask. I just started to broach the subject. Like, they left the camper behind. He interpreted in his mind that I had walked up to him and demanded that camper. And so through experiences such as that one, I learned that I can be fully in my state of grace. I can be as innocent and nonchalant, not even interested in obtaining what that person has, but they will interpret it as I've come in to take this thing from them. I was like, when I was up in Maine, there's very much a consciousness of lack in Maine. It is one of the poorest states. And the little bell at the register went off. Ding, 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 you won. Somebody won money in the lottery. And I was like, oh, hey, congratulations. I was excited about them. I don't play the lottery, so it would never occur to me that I would want somebody else's lottery winnings. I always got queasy about gambling. Didn't like to do it. But this person immediately, was on guard. Like, oh my goodness, they want what I have. And I'm like, no, I'm just congratulating you. And immediately removed myself from the circumstances because it's uncomfortable for me. My throat's getting dry. It's uncomfortable for me to be around people who feel threatened by me. Just uncomfortable. Don't like it. And that's part of me being empathic, is that's how I pick up on those things, is that discomfort. I, again, went and dealt with my insecurities, dealt with my empathy. I know who I am. I know how I feel in various circumstances. And that's how here comes my little grounding unit. Nui, come up. Yep. Yep. There we go. Figured out that's why this little one came into my experience. I used to do guided meditations, and I'd hold my child, I'd breastfeed my child while I did it. And I'm not doing small children anymore. So I've got Anubis. That's what she's here for. Whole lot of baggage attached to that subject. So back to being empathic. It's being empathetic. I just am more empathetic, thus called empathic, because I will actually feel like if somebody's afraid, I will feel terror in me if they're that afraid. And then I'll separate. I'll say, okay, this is not my terror. And that's also how I can pick up on if entities, if I go into an area and a spirit is associated with that area and it projects fear at me, I can address it. I could say, I'm not afraid to be here. I'm not afraid of the woods. Why are you projecting fear at me? And I've gotten the response, well, because we want you to go, because your presence here prevents us from doing the unpleasant things to these people that we want to do. And I've had people tell me that my presence is a form of protection for them. So, of course, I've had people capitalize on that for their own benefit. I've had people, blessings, money has come my way. A lot of pain in this. And especially the men. But almost, in Slab City, it was women too. Now, moved on. It's happened by both genders. Where money will be sent my way, but because it's put into their hands to transfer to me, they decided, oh, I didn't really need it, or the use for which it was intended would not be the best thing for me. Every excuse for them to keep it for themselves. And so that would be a reason why I'm so picky on who I associate with. Keep my circles small and tight. I have no problem cutting people up, what they call ghosting. Oh, that's the latest sin. They ghosted me. Yes. Yep. Cut off ties. Leave. No contact. That's not a problem for me anymore. it used to be. Like, why are these people mad at me? Because I left them. They didn't want to see me become happy and fulfilled. Because if I'm happy and fulfilled someplace else, all my blessings aren't coming through them and they're not stealing them from me. So I'm kind of like, took my little cow self home and away from them so they couldn't get the milk for free no more. So, is there anything else I want to mention now? Help me along this way as I continue on my adventure, the expansion of my consciousness and my understanding. I have a lot of understandings about a lot of things. Farsight, I can see into basically any time, past, present, future. Empathically, I can be there because I can come into a state of oneness with the person, or especially animals. Just the state of grace just brings me into animals' consciousnesses, seeing out of a dog's eyes into the eyes of a cow. I'll find myself just in the one of the most recent ones that was pleasant was becoming aware. People call it waking up in the morning. So as I brought my consciousness, my focus into this physical reality, as I was waking out of sleep, I was pulling my consciousness out of a dog that was playing with a human being, a guy laying on the ground. And so it's just easier because predominantly that's my most natural state, is a state of grace. So I'm very childlike, which makes me very accepting and puts me in resonance with animals. So that's why I can literally be a fly on the wall. Once I saw, as my daughter asked about me, my ex tried to convince me that she never thought of me. Guess what? Don't tell a psychic. Such lies. But my ex, by the last name McDonald, was brushing my daughter Lace's hair. And I could see, I'm assuming it was a fly on the wall, as this interaction took place. I won't hear voices, but because I'm empathically as one with a consciousness in the environment, telepathically, I know what's going on through telepathy. That she was asking about me at that time. That's why my consciousness was brought to that, because her deepest desire was to know what happened to mommy. Well, your daddy was friends with a judge, hon. All kinds of illegal shenanigans happened, and they don't have to pay for it. But you and I have to suffer for it. And then when I last saw you, you were a preteen who wanted to use me so you could date, even though daddy didn't want you to. And so you decided to hate me because I wouldn't be that tool. I'm not a tool. Not for my children, not for anybody. I'm not desperate for acceptance and approval from anyone but myself. And I'm glad I stuck to that. I'm glad I didn't become some slave to fulfill child support in the hopes that they'll let me be a part of my children's lives. and more self-respect than that. Obviously, more consciousness is coming in as I broach these subjects. Like any parent, and like children want us to be, they want us to be these heroes. Iron Man, Daddy, be Iron Man. Come back, get me. I thought that I was ready to march from Ohio, bare-ass naked, painted, all the way back to Maine. But that wouldn't have solved anything. That would just made a spectacle of me. It wouldn't have worked out. But I raised all my children until they say the age of 5 is when a person's consciousness is pretty much set. So every single one of my children experienced being breastfed, having their right to self-determination, the right to their body space, and no means no. From my oldest to my youngest, they were all taught that. And I told them every day that I love them because that was my goal. I never heard it as a child. I never felt it. So I wanted to make sure my children had that. So those children can choose to remember that, or they can go on in their anger, their hatred, their feeling abandoned, whatever they feel like, as an excuse to keep separate from me. I have no problem respecting that, because all I wanted for them was the right to self-determination. And if that's what they chose to do with it, that's what they chose to do with it. And that's the same thing with anybody in my experience. People will co-create with me of their own free will, or I won't be a part of it. I can feel a lot of consciousness from the past coming in. And I feel compelled to talk. Not compelled, like nobody's forcing me. But I feel I need to speak out. My oldest daughter, she wondered why her father didn't love her. I had to help her emotionally when she called him, Daddy, can I come stay with you? She wanted to get to know him. He refused. I had to comfort her. So she cracked this plan. And maybe this will help other parents understand why their children do the things they do, and why you did what you did when you were a child. So she decided to go stay with the boyfriend, call her father from there, and tell her father that I had abandoned her, and force him to take her in. And so, of course, I became the scapegoat. She couldn't be close to me because she had to demonize me in order to perpetuate this lie. And she had watched that movie 13, which synchronistically she was 13, and I did not want her to see, but she watched at a friend's house, and she decided she wanted that kind of relationship with a mother figure, and I wouldn't be party to it. I was looking to become healthier than I was, not be dragged down into whatever conflict, violent relationship she was idealizing and wanting to experience. So she got that with her stepmother. Her and her stepmother actually hit each other physically, fist fight. And that's what my daughter wanted. That's what my daughter got. Whether or not she decides to remember, oh shit, based my whole life on a lie. Maybe I owe my mother an apology. Maybe I understand her more, because I'm sure my children thought me weak. I was in, relationships that were abusive in one form or another, whether it was just financially, emotionally, sexually, physically. I haven't really allowed anybody to really beat me up on the regular. It's not a thing. But I think my self-restraint and not becoming the typical feminist, but by letting go of the wrongs done to me, of the abuses, just walking away and moving on, running into the next, hey, now I know what this red flag means. I have quite the filing system for all the red flags and kind of recognize them all. I bumped into them one by one, filed them away. So yeah, when it comes to relationships, especially with men, the first interaction, I could usually tell, no. Nobody's looking at me. She wants to go outside. Probably important that she does. She hasn't pooped yet this morning. The intent face. Is it time to go out? And that's probably what she's there for. As I said, my little companion for grounding. I'm not letting things go on too long, like this video. So I'm going to go let her know this out. Thank you for listening.